Welcome to Satsang. So wonderful to be together with you all. आवाज का देख लेना है ना? धन्यवाद. अपने आप देख लिया करो. धन्यवाद. We'll start as always with a question that's come in advance from one of our family members joining us online through this gift of technology, our online internet-based family, out of love for the fact that they're not able to be here with us on the banks of Ganga. We take a question from them first, and then we'll open it up to any questions that any of you might have. How can I forgive my spouse who is not committed in the marriage? Infidelity, trust issues, etc. And this was asked by our sister Isha on Instagram. How do I forgive my spouse who is not committed in the marriage, who's being disloyal in the marriage? Well, forgiveness, regardless of what we're forgiving, always has one really clear and core truth, which is we're not forgiving what the person did as the core motivation. It's not that I have to wrap my head around somehow making what they did okay. That's where we get stuck, because a lot of things people do are not actually okay. Or certainly are not okay by any of our standards of ethics or morality or dharma or yoga. Whether you take 10 Commandments, whether you take Yam and Niyam of the Yoga Sutras, whether you take really any spiritual traditions, teachings on how to live in the world, there's a few things that they all tend to have in common. Not killing, not stealing, not lying, not being dishonest, not being unfaithful, values of nonviolence, of compassion, of truth, of integrity. These are across the board. It doesn't matter what your source is, whether you're looking at Yoga Sutras and Patanjali, whether you're looking at Judeo-Christian, commandments, whether you're looking at Dharma or Dhamma, as in the Buddhist tradition it's referred to as. Wherever we look, we find these things. Be nonviolent. Be truthful. Have compassion. Be honest. Have integrity. Live righteously. And so when people don't do that, and especially when they don't do that in ways that directly hurts us and impacts us, the idea of forgiving them is not that we somehow replace Patanjali or God or the Buddha or our sages and rishis as now the new authority of what's right or not, and suddenly we're going to say, oh, no problem, you did this, that's okay. That's not what forgiveness is. It's not about okayness at all. Forgiveness is one thing and one thing only. We deserve to be free. And whatever someone has done to us, directly, indirectly, purposely, by accident, knowingly, unknowingly, whatever they've done does not change our birthright of freedom. When we hold on to grudges and anger and pain, it is a direct thwarting of our own ability to be free. So this is really the core piece to understand about forgiveness. It actually has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with you. You're not forgiving their wrong act. We're not condoning it. We're not blessing it. We're not saying it's okay. We're not accepting it. We're not even tolerating it. We're not absolving them of their karmic dues. All we are doing is one thing and one thing only. We are saying that regardless of what they have done, we still deserve to be free. And so, Isha, in the case of your husband who's been disloyal, you forgive him. Not because it's okay, not because it was right, not because you want him to do it again, but simply because you, Isha, are more valuable, more worthy than holding a grudge, than holding anger, than being stuck with all of your thoughts going around and around and around about what he's done. Now, you may decide to stay married to him, to actually forgive the act as well, to actually try to forget the act as well and move forward in the relationship. Or you may not. But even if you choose not to stay married to him, you still have to forgive him. Because regardless of married to him or not, that anger and that grudge will keep you stuck forever. So you forgive because you deserve to be free. Once you have let go in your own mind and heart, that's when you start to decide then, okay, now what? Do I stay with him? And that's up to you. It's going to depend, I would imagine, on things like, is this the first time or is this a pattern? Was it once or is it many, many times? Does he feel some level of remorse about what he's done? Does he want to change? Does he want to make it up to you? Or does he convince you that somehow you're not wife enough and that's why he had to stray? There's a lot of different aspects and criteria that one would look at to decide, like, this is a marriage worth salvaging or not. But that's totally separate from the forgiveness in your heart. You may decide the marriage is not worth salvaging, and you forgive him. You may decide the marriage is most definitely worth salvaging, especially if there's children in the picture, young children in the picture. But whatever you decide, you forgive him because you, Isha, deserve to be free. And that's why we forgive everyone who hurts us in every way they do. And that's why we, as we were talking last night, move through our lives cleaning that couch. Because it's the only way for us to stay free. So thank you for that beautiful question. Anyone here, any questions that anyone here? Yes, there's a microphone right there in front.
मेरी जिज्ञासा है कि गुरु कब और कैसे मिलते हैं?
Beautiful. So how and when do we find the Guru? It's said that when the disciple is ready, the Guru appears. And brings light in our lives so that we can see the truth of who we are. That's the role of the Guru. They clear the nonsense in our mind. If you look ever at a lake or a pond, a body of water that doesn't move very fast, if you go out in the morning sometimes or the evening, you'll see there's like a layer of kind of scum, it's probably the best word to use, on the surface of that pond or lake, due to which you cannot actually see into the lake and you cannot see even your reflection in the lake. And so what do? You just take your hand and you remove it. It only takes a moment. And then you can see into the lake, you can see your reflection. And in a way, the Guru is the one who keeps removing that scum, that gunk, that dirt, whatever you think of it as, that's clouding our own vision, that's clouding our own ability to see and understand. Because a lot of times when we look at the metaphoric lake of ourselves or pond of ourselves, we identify as that gunk that we see on the surface without realizing that actually that's there, simply blocking our view. So we look at it and we say, oh, I'm weeds, or oh, I'm moss, or I'm oil, or whatever it is that makes up the gunk on the surface of the water. That's not you. That's just the stuff that is there that has collected over the period of time since you've last cleaned your inner eyesight. That's what's blocking you from you. That isn't you. But it's how a lot of us identify. And so the Guru removes that so we can see. Now, how and when we find the Guru, as I said, it's said proverbially that when the disciple is ready, the Guru appears. The dilemma a lot of times is, as disciples, we think we're ready, but really what we want is an ego massage. And the real gurus don't actually do that. They're not the ones who are there to massage your ego just so that you will stay near them, so that you will keep bowing to them, so that you will keep writing them checks, or so that you will keep doing whatever it is that they may want you to do. The real gurus have no agenda for you other than for you to see the truth of you and live in and as that shining truth of you, and to help you through whether it's meditative practices, introspective practices, seva, japa, whatever it may be, and usually it's a combination of all of them. They want to purify your way of seeing and your way of living so that whatever you do, whether you're sweeping the floors or washing dishes or chopping carrots or stuffing envelopes or whatever you may be doing, you're doing it as someone able to see the light of themselves. These days, sadly, a lot of people have gotten this mistaken belief that somehow if they have the right mantra or spiritual practice or meditative technique or guru or whatever it may be, that that will somehow put them on the path of making a lot of money or, getting the job that they want or getting all of the things in life that they're not real self desires. And this is a real fundamental fallacy. Our spiritual practice, the grace of the Guru, the grace of God, the power of manifestation, the power of all of that, is not about giving me something new. It's about giving me a new way of understanding what I have. Giving me a new way of understanding myself in the midst of whatever situation I may be in. And so the dilemma is a lot of times the Guru does show up. But in our minds, we decide, well, it's not the right one because this one doesn't have the get-rich-quick meditation technique. Or this one, tells me that I need to change some things in my life and doesn't quite massage my ego the way that I would like. I've said many times that for me, being a disciple feels like what I can only imagine a lump of clay on a potter's wheel must feel like, where you feel like you get spun around and around and around, and every once in a while you get a big slap. Now, for us, it's not a physical slap. I know my guru had lots of physical slaps from his guru, but for whatever reason, he's decided that we're all too, soft to take the physical slaps, and so he just gives them to us metaphorically. But that slap that keeps you on the wheel. I mean, if the potter didn't slap the piece of clay, it would roll off onto the floor and, end up useless. But after the potter has done all of that spinning and slapping, you then find yourself in a fire, in a kiln, literally. I mean, you want to make pottery, that's what you do. You take it off the wheel and you stick it in a super hot oven and you burn it. And that's what it feels like. Anybody who has lived with a guru in their bodies. So it's not a matter of just a guru whose books you're reading or, connecting with in a level of accessing teachings, but without the body. A guru in the body. You spend enough time living in the presence of a guru in their bodies, and you're gonna get spun around, you're gonna get slapped, maybe literally, maybe metaphorically, you're gonna feel like you're in a fire. But at the end of the day, you look and you realize, oh my God, look at that. I've been turned into something useful. A potter makes cups and bowls and vases, and a guru turns us into vessels, not for tea or flowers or fruits, but actually for God's will and God's power and flow to flow through us onto the earth. But it's not an easy process. And so I think that there's a lot of situations probably where we do find the right guru. But our ego is like, I think I'll go with door number 2. And so we avoid it. Now, that isn't to say that we shouldn't use all powers of discrimination. We should. We absolutely should be completely sure that someone is absolutely right before we commit ourselves. But you want to make sure that you're making that decision not on the basis of your ego, but on the basis of deep intuition. A lot of times the ego likes things that are bright and shiny and feel good. And that's not necessarily going to be the guru who's really going to show you your light. So keep yourself open. Pray to the divine for that grace to send you exactly who and what you need exactly when you need it. And if now isn't the right time, pray for grace to shape you into whatever would be required for the time to be right, to open your heart further, to help you surrender more, to whatever it may be. And until that happens, we do, of course, have the benefit of access of so many gurus, so many masters, through scripture, through books, through teachings that are now available online. So it's actually a great blessing compared to what it must have been like, 100 years ago, where if you didn't have the grace or the opportunity to show up in front of a guru, you were really lost. At least now we've got access to so many teachings to use to build ourselves and purify ourselves until that moment. But don't worry, it will absolutely happen. Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Yesterday you said that a meaningful life is about giving and service. And I totally agree. At the same time, at least in the West, there are so many people who focus so much on the needs of others, but neglect themselves based on, maybe feelings of guilt and feel over-responsible.
Yes.
And then in psychotherapy, they are said they should learn to say no and think more about themselves.
Yes.
This can be confusing. Could you please?
Great question.
Thank you.
Great question. And by the way, it's not only the West. The psychotherapy part might be more of the West, but the inclination to neglect one's own needs in service of the needs of others is something that is universal, I think. But here's what's really interesting and really important. When we speak of service, it's not service that should stem from that place of guilt. You're absolutely right. A lot of people serve others, give to others, help others, and neglect themselves out of not so much a spiritual path, but much more a psychological issue that makes them feel unworthy, undeserving, not good enough, and that leads them to neglect themselves in favor of more deserving people, or that makes them feel like it's only through helping others that they become worthy. That sort of, until I've done something for you today, I don't deserve happiness, peace, joy, etc. And that's not the spirit in which service comes. And that's actually why seva, the Sanskrit word for selfless service, or what we speak about as karma yoga, the yoga of action, using every moment, every action as a way, an aspect of yoga to get closer to union. These are spiritual practices that absolutely must go hand in hand with a meditative practice. Because otherwise we lose ourselves in the action. We start to believe that it is about the action. We start to believe that we are the doer. So there's a whole variety of different complexes that arise with that. One is, I'm the one who does everything. Therefore, I'm so great. I'm the one who made this happen. If I weren't here, none of this would happen. I'm the one who did this, built that, created this, etc. Or it becomes, I'm the one who has to do everything. That's not fair. Why does no one do anything for me? Or it becomes, I neglect myself so fully in order to do for you. And look at this, you don't even love me. Look at this, you can't even say thank you. Look at this, you don't even appreciate me. And so it gives rise to all sorts of situations, feelings, thoughts, complexes that are really the exact opposite of what we're supposed to achieve through this. The point of service is not about either me as the doer. So Bhagavan Krishna makes this really clear in the Bhagavad Gita. Do not think you are the doer. You are not the doer. You are the instrument. I am the doer. I being God. You are Krishna's telling Arjuna, I am the doer. You are the instrument. Get out of your ego. Stop thinking it's all about you. You are not the one who's actually the doer. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that we serve not to assuage some guilt or feeling of unworthiness or not good enoughness or guilt at having more than others have or any of that. We serve because to serve purifies our mind. It's a spiritual practice. It purifies our mind. That's why it's called a yoga. It makes us realize, if we're doing it right, that A, we are just an instrument in God's hands. And in the same way that in an orchestra, a little piccolo is actually just as important as, a big trombone or a big drum or a big, cello and a little flute, that every single instrument actually is critical. You look at the human body. Every single cell is critical. You have one blockage in one nerve, one neuron. Aneurysm, stroke, death, brain damage, paralysis. Every one of the trillions that we have is critical. What Seva reminds us of is whatever we are doing, and again, whether it's cleaning toilets, chopping food, being a surgeon, writing something, building something, serving something, whether you're the cook of the food, whether you're the server of the food, whether you're the one who's got a job and you're donating the money to buy the food, whatever role you are playing, we do it so that through that act, We purify our self-identity. We stop identifying as doer. We start identifying as just instrument, vehicle, channel. But also on a very deep and beautiful level, so that we experience oneness with those we are serving and with all of the others who are serving. So my favorite way of explaining this is, if I trip and I fall and I injure my right leg, my left leg picks up the extra weight. We call that limping. But now, the left leg isn't expecting some kind of a humanitarian award. It's not expecting the right leg to say, oh my God, thank you so much. You are so wonderful, left leg. It doesn't require me to say, hey, left leg, would you mind, please? You're so great. Left leg, gee, come on, you know. It's going to do it automatically because it understands the right leg is self. And if after injuring my right leg, I injure it again the next week and again the next week, the left leg never says, oh my God, you know, like enough already. Forget it. Like, tell the right leg to stop being so clumsy. Let it pick up the weight for a while. It just keeps limping. And the body as a whole, so all of the different instruments, all of the different channels, all of the different vessels of this incredible divine flow that makes up this human body, it never says enough. If after hurting my right leg, I end up with a headache, and then a stomach ache, and then a flu, and then malaria, and then God knows what, the body never says, you know what, check back in after January 1st, like this year's quota is over. We did right leg injury, we did headache, we did stomach ache. I'll see if I can squeeze malaria into 2024's budget. It never says that. It just keeps doing it. And so we serve, keeping that ideal in mind. That it's just, we're doing it because it's all self. It's all self. And whether I'm serving self through literally scooping khichdi onto your plate, or I'm serving self by stuffing envelopes to get donations so that we can have money to buy khichdi or pay people who make khichdi, or I'm serving self because I'm doing the dishes after you've eaten khichdi, or I'm serving self because I'm sitting outside the hall where you're eating khichdi and I'm making music. So that when you emerge from eating khichdi, as you walk by, you hear the sound of my music, and it brings a smile to you, and it sort of changes the nervous system of you as you walk by. Whatever it may be, whatever role I play, nothing's bigger, nothing's smaller. So that's how we serve. And what you'll notice about all of this is there's no abdication of self in any of this. There's no sense of I am less important than you. It's an honoring of self. It's an honoring of the opportunity that I have to be part of this orchestra. But as you mentioned very correctly, a lot of us neglect the self, and then we end up needing therapists or doctors to tell us, depending on how bad the situation has gotten, to tell us, hey, you know, got to take care of yourself. And of course you do. And that's a beautiful part of the lesson, which is when we speak about being in seva of all, it doesn't say of all minus you. The goal is to recognize you are part of it all. To neglect yourself is to absolutely miss the point, because once again, it is to separate you from those you serve. So it misses the point entirely. Seva unites us, it connects us, it removes borders and boundaries. But if I've removed myself as one deserving of my own seva, then again I've separated myself from you. So I have to remember that serving all includes myself, because there is no all that is minus me. So of course I have to take care of myself. And on just a purely logistic, pragmatic, physical level of effectiveness and efficiency, if I am burned out, I am not going to be of any real great value to anyone. I may be able to still scoop khichdi onto a plate or wash dishes, but we're energetic beings. And the energy with which I am serving is not going to be in alignment. There's a beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran, who's just one of my favorite poets. And it's a poem titled On Giving. And in it, and I cannot remember exactly the line, which breaks my heart because it's so beautiful, but the gist of it is, if you cannot give happily, lovingly, freely, peacefully, it is better that you sit. Oh, I take it back, sorry, rewind. It's a poem on work and service. He also has a beautiful poem on giving, but it's a different poem. This one is on work and service. And he says, if you cannot work lovingly, freely, joyfully, gratefully for the opportunity to be of service, it is better you sit in front of the temple and ask for alms from those who are able to work with joy and buy the bread. Like it's considered in his mind, and I love this, such a sin against self and against creation and against dharma to work and to serve grudgingly. That it's better just be a beggar and sit there and let someone else who's happy to work feed you. And while that may not be the most pragmatic advice in today's world, on a deep spiritual level, it has an incredible teaching about the way we need to work and serve. And so we have to do the inner work, because I'll guarantee you one thing. The person who totally neglects themselves in service of others out of guilt or inferiority or unworthiness, they're not doing it lovingly, freely, joyfully, gratefully. There's always going to be pain, grudges, expectation, suffering. And so we have to do the inner work that enables us to serve like that. And serving purifies our mind so that we have more of an ability to serve. So serving becomes, in a way, the means and also the destination. But we include ourselves very much in there. Great question, thank you. Other questions? Great, so I actually just remembered that there was one other question that had come in advance that I had promised them we would take today. So it's a perfect place to conclude. We lost a family member to accidental overdose yesterday. Our grandchildren, 3 and 4 years old, have lost their Uncle Nick. Our question is, how do you speak to children about addiction and death from addiction? And this has been asked by a community member from Recovery 2.0. So I always say that addiction is actually a spiritual quest that has gone awry. That which propels addiction is a sense in the mind that says, the present moment, this physical intersection of time and space, and how it feels in my physical body, in the electrical and chemical reactions in my brain that we call thoughts and feelings and emotions, is not what it should be, is not what I have come onto earth for, is not what I want it to be. And so, where some people have that experience and they turn to, therefore, meditation, yoga, a spiritual practice to change how their mind works, to change their experience. Other people turn to drugs and alcohol. It also changes it. The dilemma, of course, with drugs and alcohol is it changes it in a way that, of course, is very detrimental to the physical body and the mind, but that also creates addiction, and it creates a situation in which you develop tolerance. You need more and more and more. So where a little bit of alcohol or a little bit of drugs in the beginning might have been enough to give me a feeling state that suddenly feels much more like what I want it to feel like in my body, in my brain. Very quickly I start to need more and more and more and more. And that more and more and more ends up harming my body, harming my mind. And then we end up with overdose that leads to death. But it's really important to realize, and this is true whether you are the addict, whether you are the loved one of the addict, or whether you are a loved one of the addict trying to explain, as you've asked, to the children, is this person actually had the right thought, the right idea, that pain and suffering is not what life is supposed to be about. The dilemma is that the solution that they chose turned out to take them farther from joy and peace and meaning into more and more pain and suffering, rather than closer and closer to joy and peace. They just took a wrong turn. And you could help kids understand. You could say, do you ever remember being in the car with someone who took a wrong turn? Most kids will say, yeah, it happens all the time. Oh, we took the wrong turn. Some of us have the blessing of being able to take a U-turn. We find someone in our life, a guru, a mentor, a teacher, an inspiration of some sort, who helps us take a U-turn. A doctor, a therapist, it could be anyone, who helps us take a U-turn and get back on the right path. Some people don't. And so they end up on that wrong way without knowing they've taken a wrong turn. They think that they're getting closer and closer. They just need more and more of it. So help the kids understand that their Uncle Nick was not bad or wrong or stupid, but he actually understood something very deep and real and true about life, which is it's not meant to be pain and suffering. It's meant to be joy and peace. He just took a wrong turn in getting to that destination. And unfortunately, he didn't know how to get back onto his path. And then, of course, in general, talking to children about death. It's so important to help them understand, because children in many ways are so much more spiritual than we are. They're so much less closed and blocked, that in many ways children still hear and see and feel departed loved ones. In a way that when we do, we think, oh, I'm going crazy, or I need to let it go, or people tell you, just let it go. But the truth is, only Uncle Nick's body has left us. But Uncle Nick's soul, spirit, essence, truth is actually still here. And you can also help them understand, they're very young still, but even during the time they've known Uncle Nick, his physical body has changed. Our physical bodies keep changing. They're probably too young to understand how the cells of our body die and are regenerated. But maybe you could just help them understand, maybe he got a different haircut, or maybe he dressed differently, or he looked differently. Physical form keeps changing. And when we die, all that's happened is the physical form has once again changed. It's gone back to the elements. But through all of the physical changes that our bodies go through during the course of a lifetime, we keep saying I. That sense of self stays constant. It never waxes or wanes based on how the cells of our body are dying and regenerating. And this is true about our loved ones. We never wax and wane in our love for our loved ones based on their physical bodies changing. Because what we love really is soul, is spirit, is essence, is that which doesn't change. And so you can help them understand, did you love Uncle Nick even when he was in the other room? Like you're in the living room, Uncle Nick is in the kitchen, but you still love him, right? Well, even when you're not with his physical body, you're loving him. Means you're able to access him even when he's not physically there. And in the same way, encourage them to still be able to access him. Feel him in them. Know that his soul and his spirit is still there. And that if you feel comfortable talking to them about reincarnation, that his soul, his spirit is actually going to come back in a body that is healthier, that isn't in so much pain and suffering. And so in the same way, when their shoes get, full of holes because they've grown and their shoes are now really old and torn and they need a new pair of shoes, or their jeans are old and torn and they need a new pair of jeans because the old ones don't fit. In the same way, Uncle Nick is going to get a new body because the old one didn't fit anymore. It wasn't healthy anymore. It wasn't strong anymore. And so God is going to give Uncle Nick a new body. So those are all different ways that you can help them really understand that. But what's most important is to really help them understand that he was not wrong or stupid or bad or anything that has any negative connotation whatsoever. He was looking for exactly the right thing, but just in the wrong place. And you can help them also understand that. Have you ever been looking for something and you can't find it? You thought it was in your room, but it turns out you left it in the living room, but you're ransacking your bedroom looking for it, and it wasn't there. Well, Uncle Nick was looking for happiness and peace, an end to his suffering, in drugs and alcohol, and it wasn't there. But he didn't know it wasn't there. So he kept looking and he kept looking and he kept looking. And ultimately that looking took his life, wore out his physical body. But now he gets a new one. And he'll have another chance to find that love and joy and peace. So I hope that helps you explain it to them. And such love and condolences from your family here on the banks of Mother Ganga. And to all of you here with us, have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening. And I look so forward to being together with you all again tomorrow. Have a beautiful night.